Hey everyone, Freak Philosopher here again. Now let's review Demon Hunter's The Triptych. After the release of Summer of Darkness, Demon Hunter fans everywhere were anxiously awaiting the third album. This third album would be called The Triptych and would prove to be a milestone for their career. This album included a lot of firsts for them. The Triptych was their first album to have its own album website, where people who visited it could read more about the history of Demon Hunter, as well as more information on the upcoming release. And also, it gave the opportunity for the viewers to download a special acoustic version of My Heartstrings Come Undone, which would later be ported to the special edition release of the Triptych. Another thing that added to the anxiousness of their listeners was the fact that they had a new lineup which replaced two people, including the drummer and one of their guitarists. Which, interestingly enough, it later became a trend that would basically dominate their career, as after every two albums their lineup changes in some way. The Triptych was also released with 3 different album covers to choose from, because Ryan Clark had 3 different ideas for what he wanted for the album cover, told them to painter Dan Seagrave, and Dan Seagrave just ran with it. He came up with 3 different album cover designs, and Ryan Clark was just couldn't get his head around each one. He loved them all so much, so he decided to release the album with 3 different album cover options, which was definitely a first for them, and I've never really seen any other band do that and pull it off as well as they did. Also, this was their first album to have a special DVD released with its pre-order, with behind-the-scenes stuff about the album. Also, it was their first album to have a special edition release, which would later become a trend in their later albums. The Triptych had much more of an uplifting tone as opposed to the previous 2, which were dark and rather cynical. Of course, it kept some of these themes through some of the songs in the Triptych. Among the first for Demon Hunter, this was their first album to actually feature an intro track. However, this intro track wasn't just really more of a filler. It was actually something that really helped lead into one of their better songs on the record, which is Not I. The Flame That Guides Us Home, the first track, was really neat, really well mixed and whatnot, and really led into their first song really well, which again was known to set the tone for the rest of the record as a whole. And then from Not I, it went straight into Undying, which is the main song from that album, their main single. And this album proved to be what Ryan Clark intended the album to be, which was the definitive Demon Hunter in sound and in message. Which I could say they pulled it off quite well, but at the time I was still pretty convinced that Demon Hunter's definitive record was their first one, to be honest. Another thing that was interesting about this record is the fact that not only was it a more uplifting tone, but it was a little bit more of a softer tone too, featuring a lot more electronic effects, and the guitars were mixed differently than in this one. And also, this album featured not 1, not 2, but 3 ballads as opposed to the 2 albums before it. Despite the difference in direction that they took with this album, it became one of their most well-known albums and had most of the songs that got later fans hooked on them. If they weren't drawn in by Infected, then it was most likely the Soldier song, Undying, or 1,000 Apologies. And for some, it was probably the Demon Hunter's cover of Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck by Prong, which I must say they did a way better job than the original artists. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, at first I wasn't sure what to think about this direction, but really, it did prove to be an awesome record regardless, even though it lacked a lot of the aggression and anger that was originally in their previous 2 albums. At least that was the case in my opinion. Demon Hunter's The Triptych proved to be, debatably, their best album to date. Once again, let's look into my CD bag of tricks here and take a look at the album packaging. This here is the standard edition. This is what the disc looks like. Very simple. Now, this was the CD cover that I got. I pre-ordered it, so I really didn't have much of a choice, whereas in the store, if they had multiples of these, you could choose between the different album covers. I've grown to like this one, but at first I wasn't. This was like my least favorite of the three. Pick that up. A bit of a printing error on this particular copy, but it's definitely a good thought. See, I like the way they laid this out. Once again, I like the way they laid out these songs, same way as before. That's Don Clark. And there's more of the lyrics. Here's Ryan. They did the best photo shoots for this record than they did for the previous ones, and I thought that was really cool. That's their new drummer for this record, Yogi Watts. See, what you're supposed to do is supposed to open it like this. There we go. I thought that was a cool picture. Personally, at the time, I thought they should have used that as part of an album cover, but that was my opinion. I love the art direction they took with this one. And that was the new guitarist they brought in, who added some really neat technical stuff. And that's another one of the guitarists that worked on this record, who is also the drummer for Alliant K, who, if you're paying attention to their to Demon Hunter's news blog, so you'd know that he left Demon Hunter and is now focusing more on being a drummer for Alliant K. Okay, well, that's it for packaging on this one. Also, this one came with a I also because I pre-ordered it. They gave me a special promotional DVD with behind-the-scenes info. This is what it looked like. I no longer have the cardboard slipcover that came in. But anyway, this is the best photo from that photo shoot they did for the standard release of this record. And that's the back cover, obviously. I thought they did an amazing job with that. Just awesome. And over here, we have the special edition. This is the best on-disc designs I've seen so far. I don't know if you're going to be able to see all the detail here. If you look really closely, see, yeah, if I point to the light, you should be able to see more of that. Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. Here is this, and I thought that was really cool how they added it like that. Give me one moment here. Alright, here's the fold out that came with the CD, with the special edition version. Now, the direction that Ryan Clark gave Dan Seagrave was something Ryan wanted something to do with snakes, crows, or spiders. And obviously, I showed you the one. I had the one with crows, and this one, Dan Seagrave combined all these together, which I thought looks really cool, and is definitely one of their better album covers. And over here we go. Here's the other three. That's the one that I have. That's the one that I wanted, and that's the one that wasn't particularly my favorite because it kind of made it look like their logo was alive, and their logo is supposed to depict something that's dead. But anyway, here we go. Here's all the lyrics and all their awesomeness. This release also came with 3 acoustic songs. You can read them right there, and which were all really done well. They got some criticism from people who really weren't really fans of Demon Hunter because they just thought it was, I don't know, mediocre or something. I don't know. Personally, I really liked them because it was neat to hear their songs done acoustically. Personally, I think they should do an entire acoustic album. And the remix of Undying was really good, in my opinion. And then there's credits, and there's the DVD credits. Okay, that's enough of that. And this here, I think this should have been the album cover because this shows more the face on the album cover of the thing, and it has the bullet hole too. Yeah, I thought that was really, really good. Look at all that detail. And here was the back cover for it. Personally, not one of my favorite photo shoots by them, but still, regardless, Triptych was definitely different from what they originally did, but it proved to be awesome anyway. However, in my opinion, there are more awesome records involved. Storm the Gates of Hell. So, tune in next time to see me review their 4th album. Alright, see you later everybody. Freak Philosopher over and out.